Hello Leafs Nation, I'm Rick Scarborough and you're watching Blue and White Weekly, where we bring you weekly updates on the Leafs and the hockey world at large. I was supposed to be enjoying my summer vacation right now, but apparently that's not what's important. What's important is we've got Maple Leafs draft picks, signings, and trades to talk about, so let's get into the news. We're going to ignore the elephant in the room for the time being and attempt to go in something of a chronological order here, going back to last weekend when a trio of pending free agents signed extensions with the Leafs. Former captain John Tavares signed a 4-year, $4.38 million extension. Young gun Matthew Knies hangs around for 6 more years at $7.75 million per, and certified passion haver Steven Lorentz stays home for 3 more years at $1.35 million a year. For more on this matter, we have to turn to the expert. Some say he wrote the lyrics to Man, I Feel Like a Woman, and that he refuses to acknowledge the existence of Keswick, Ontario. All we know is he's our senior analyst, Byron Doyle.
Well, hello there, folks. Byron Doyle here, Blue Man Group Weekly, and I gotta tell you, kids, I'm in a pretty good mood. I'm in a pretty good mood on this fine summer day, and I will tell you why. Toronto Maple Leafs have locked up 3 of my favorite players. That's right. Johnny Toronto, John Tavares, Matthew Knies, the big booty himself, and the hometown kid, Steven Lorentz. They're all sticking around. They're going to stay as Maple Leafs for this foreseeable future, and I'm quite pleased about it, I got to tell you. We'll go from the top down. We'll start with the big dog himself, former captain Johnny Toronto, John Tavares. He's staying 4 more years of Johnny. 4 more years, that's a policy I would vote for. That's something I can get behind. John Tavares, still putting up big numbers in his age. He gets, takes a bit of a discount. He already said he could have gotten more out in the open market, but he wanted to be in Toronto. He wants to win in Toronto. Love that. Hang on to that. Hang on to that little nugget. I want to win in Toronto. I want to do it here. Hang on to that noise. Matthew Knies, big dog, big kid, Johnny's adoptive son, evidently. He says, I want to do it here in Toronto. It's become like home. He's the kid from the desert, just like his line mate Austin Matthews, but says, I want to do it here in Toronto. Love to see that other guy. Hang on to that. I want to do it in Toronto. I love it. Stevie Lorentz, not a shining star, 4th line minutes, sometimes a healthy scratch, but when he gets in the lineup, you make sure you notice him. He's out there posting pics of himself in his Leafs jersey when he's a little kid. Says, I want to be home. I love playing here in Toronto. It's an honor to put that maple leaf on my chest, wear that crest. And that's the point I'm trying to make, folks. Brad Trelevin's talking about a DNA change on this team, and everyone's saying, well, they need to get tougher. They need to get tougher. They need to be bigger in the playoffs. They need to focus less on the finesse. And while I agree with all of that, I think the true DNA change is the guys that want to be here are sticking around. The guys that want to win in Toronto, do it for Leafs Nation. They're going to be here in Toronto. You see it with that signing, Michael Pezzetta, good old Italian boy right there. Guys want to be in Toronto. If you don't want to be in Toronto, get out of Dodge. If you don't want to play for the Leafs, if you can't handle the pressure, if pressure don't make diamonds for you, you can leave town. And that's not pointed at anybody in particular, but that's how it is. You can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. If you can't handle the intensity and the passion, get out of Leafs Nation. Anyway, that's all for me. Back to you, Ricky. Go Leafs, go, eh?
Oddly upbeat and passionate for once, Byron, and for once we agree. I too am glad that all 3 of those guys had decided to re-up with the Leafs. Following those 3 extensions in their forward group, GM Brad Treliving looked to bolster that part of the lineup in a trade with the Utah Mammoth. The Leafs received Matias Maccelli, who despite the Italian twang to that last name, hails from Turku, Finland. The 24-year-old winger had 18 points in 55 games with Utah last year. The trade was for a conditional 3rd-round pick in 2027. That condition being that if Maccelli has 51 points next season and the Leafs qualify for the playoffs, the pick becomes a 2nd-rounder in 2029. Also last weekend, on Friday and Saturday, the NHL Draft came to us, where the Leafs held 6 picks from the 2nd round onwards. For more on the next generation of Maple Leafs, we'll send it to our ringside reporter, Riley Roberts.
Thanks very much, Rick. And as you can see, I'm clearly not ringside.
With it being summer and the off-season, the arena is currently closed, so I'm out here trying my best to survive in the scorching Southern Ontario sun. Last weekend's NHL draft saw the Leafs without a selection in the first round, but that doesn't mean they didn't walk away with some good pieces for the future, especially at the forward position. Norwegian center Tinus Luke Koblar from Leksands in the Swedish Junior League, center Tyler Hopkins from the Kingston Frontenacs, center William Bell from the U.S. National Development Program, center Harry Nancy from the Owen Sound Attack, and left winger Matthew Hakar from the Kitchener Rangers all joined the Leafs system. Funny story about Hakar, he actually found out he was drafted by Toronto while attending his high school prom in Sault Ste. Marie. While the Leafs didn't take any goalies this year, those 5 forwards are joined by 6'4", 200-pound defenseman Ryland Fellinger of the Flint Firebirds. Speaking of his size, it seems a bigger team is part of the DNA change that GM Brad Treliving has spoken about, as the smallest of this draft class is Hopkins, who is still an impressive 6'1", 179 pounds. All 6 of these young men attended Leafs development camp this past week, where they hung out and trained with a horse as part of an exercise in managing emotion and pressure in difficult situations. It remains to be seen how many of these prospects will receive an invite to training camp in the fall. So until we know more, I'll send it back to you in the studio, Rick.
Thank you very much, Riley, and it's good to see you trying your best to keep cool in this summer heat. And that brings us to July 1st, not only Canada Day, but the start of the NHL free agency period. The Leafs' first acquisition of the day was 27-year-old Michael Pezzetta, who played 25 games for the Habs last year, recording 0 goals and 0 assists in those games. Why such horrible stats? Because why put up numbers when you can simply bully people? This bruiserweight stands at 6'1", 219 pounds and had a hits per 60 last year of 29.5. He's been signed to a 2-year, $812.5 thousand contract. Next, the Leafs brought back a piece of their defense from last year that you may not remember, Dakota Mermis. The 31-year-old spent much of the last season with the Leafs injured. Then, when he was waived in preparation for a conditioning stint with the Toronto Marlies, he was claimed by the Utah Hockey Club, who waived him again not long after, where he was reclaimed by the Leafs. He has now been signed to a 2-year, $812.5 thousand deal. Another returning Leaf, albeit from further back in the history books, is Travis Boyd. The 31-year-old center played 20 games for the Maple Leafs during the 2020 North Division bubble season. Last year, he only played 3 games for the Minnesota Wild, and with a league minimum cap hit of $775,000 for 1 year, I'd be surprised if he's little more than a depth pickup for Toronto. Another league minimum center came in by the name of Vinny Lettieri, who bounced between the NHL and AHL last season in the Bruins system. And as of the making of this episode, the last signing by the Leafs is Benoit Olivier Giroux, a 25-year-old French center who played in 47 games last year for the Hartford Wolfpack in the AHL. But, as with any free agency day, to gain some pieces, you have to also lose some. Pontus Holmberg and Nick Abruzzese have inked deals with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Alex Steeves has signed with the Boston Bruins, and veteran goaltender Matt Murray has joined the Seattle Kraken. There's one name I've omitted, of course, and for more on the departure of Mitch Marner, we'll go now to our junior intern, Gillsy.
What's going on, dudes and dudettes? It's your boy Gillsy, and I'm back on Blue and White Weekly to talk about something I never wanted to talk about. Mitch Marner has left the Toronto Maple Leafs. Mitch Marner is now playing for the Vegas Golden Knights. I really did like Mitch Marner. I really did. You know, obviously the last year or 2 or 3 or 4, the relationship's been rocky between Mitchie and Leafs Nation, but he was a good player, you know, not in the playoffs, but good player, great in the community, great personality sometimes, and gave us a lot of fun moments with the Leafs. You know, we got Nick Waugh coming back to the Leafs because there's a whole sign and trade and, you know, tampering thing going on between Toronto and Vegas, and it's above my pay grade, but I want to come and just, you know, take time to actually think about this before we start blasting Marner on Twitter, before your uncle takes to Facebook and rants about, you know, how he's a super soft player. Let's actually take a second and think about whose fault this all was, because I don't pin all the blame on Mitchie. Is Marner partially at fault? Sure, absolutely. I mostly blame his agent, Darren Ferris, for running his mouth too much, and the whole Marner camp in general. Hi, Paul Marner, how you doing? And I blame Brendan Shanahan. Shanny should have moved off of Marner, but he didn't, because Shanny's kids loved Marner, loved having Mitchie here in Toronto, and Marner's jersey sold well, which, you know what, fair enough, it's a business. But as soon as we knew the core four weren't working out, as soon as it looked like someone needed to go, and Mitch's no trade clause was about, no move clause, or whatever it was about to kick in, Kyle Dubas said, yeah, I'll do whatever it takes. And Brendan Shanahan fired him as soon as he said that. Dubas had the plan to move Mitch Marner away from the Maple Leafs, and Shanahan kicked him out. He let Mitch's no-move clause kick in and basically guaranteed way back 2 years ago that this would happen. He let Mitchie's no-move clause kick in 2 years ago, almost exactly 2 summers ago. And he let all of this occur. He let Mitch Marner leave the Maple Leafs. Mitch is one of those guys that, he grew up playing for the Leafs. He's a great player, taken 4th overall. He could have been and should have been a Leaf for life, a Leaf all-time great with his number in the rafters and a bunch of records broken, couple of Stanley Cups. Didn't end up happening. I think we should still retire 16, but for Darcy Tucker. Anyway, so like I said, Mitch was very involved in the community. Remember those Intact insurance commercials he used to do. But, if you don't remember, for a while there, Mitchie was sponsored by Red Bull. He showed up in a couple of their ads, and I actually saw on Facebook Marketplace the other day that someone's selling a cardboard cutout of Mitch Marner in a Red Bull jersey. And I thought it was really funny, and I want it. So please consider subscribing to the channel so we can get monetized and I can buy the Mitch Marner Red Bull cutout. Anyway, I'm going to, in honor of Mitchie and in his memory of his time as a Leaf, I'm going to chug this Red Bull while sad music plays and my favorite photos of Marner as a Leaf flash up on screen. So enjoy. Go Leafs, go. Red Bull sucks, boys. Anyway, back to you, Rick. Wow. I didn't know Gillsy was that big a fan of Mitch Marner. It's an odd bit of character development for him. I'm sorry, Gillsy. And that will do it for this special summer edition of Blue and White Weekly. Barring any earth-shattering news, myself and the rest of the Blue and White team will be back at the beginning of training camp in September to get you up to speed on all things Leafs. Until then, though, there's still lots of great content on the way from the Hammer Hockey YouTube channel, so be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss a thing. Thank you very much for watching Leafs Nation, and remember, go Leafs, go. We'll see you soon.